Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Dragon Network once more. Today's video is going to be a deck profile once more, and it's going to be about stuff that will be getting a boost from Tachyon Galaxy once more. And it's going to be on a deck that you've all been wanting to see once more. And this deck profile that we're going to be talking about once more is going to be Disaster Dragon, i.e. the Elemental Dragon version, or what I've now referred to as Royal Disaster Dragon. Okay, so before I get started into the actual profile, I just want to take this brief moment to talk about what's going to be in my upcoming Wake in the Dragons video, and that is, it's going to be more or less just questions and answers about these guys, because there are things that some people still do not quite know about them, and I just want to get some stuff out of the way for when Tachyon Galaxy comes out next week. So if there are things you wanted to know, like what happens in this scenario, like say if my opponent Moss Reborn's my guy, what happens? Or what happens if I control two blasters and it's my opponent's end phase? And what happens when Return from Different Dimension has been activated during my opponent's turn and it's now the end phase? What happens first? Does Return re-banish them, or do you get to add them back to your hand? I'll be doing that and more in the next Wake in the Dragons videos. So if you have any things like that you want to know about, ask about them in the comment section below, and then I'll answer them to the best of my ability, because these are things that people are going to need to know, especially seeing how this deck, be it in the form of Tempest Dragoonity, Blast of the Balls, or just standard Dragon Rulers, these things are going to be seeing play whether you like it or not, and you'll be either playing with them or against them, and this will be important stuff to know for our upcoming format. That being said, let's get to the actual deck profile itself, and this is more or less just an update to my previous build. I've taken out my Red Eyes Wyverns, and I've used those slots to max out on Blaster and Redox, as their effects are just so very good. And then we've got your 3 copies of Tempest, who I've gone over a lot before. He's the best dragon of these guys in this deck. No mini dragons. I am not running them, as this is a Disaster Dragon deck, and I just do not have room for them. Although I will say that Lightning looks very, very appealing in this particular style, and I might ultimately cut some cards out to throw a couple in and just make it a more wind-oriented build, because I like the idea of having Lightning pitch a Totem Dragon or a Red Eyes Wyvern or a Golem Dragon to summon Tempest, and then you can have Debris Dragon grab back Lightning or Totem Dragon or Golem Dragon and doing shit from there. So there is that. So, but that, otherwise, these are the big dragons that you want to get, and the ones you want to look out for at your sneak peek. And then we get to the other dragons. 1 copy of Red Eyes, new edition Yamada Dragon. Credit to Richard Clark for this one, because I didn't really think of how much you could abuse Yamada Dragon until I seen the stuff that he did, and all I have to say is draw, 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 draw. But in all seriousness, Yamada Dragon is searchable through Blaster. You can easily summon it with Totem, or having Dragosack create tokens. When you've done a whole bunch of your Dragon Ruler plays, your hand size tends to get a little low. This refreshes it by giving you a +3, +4, or even a +5. If they try and do something to it like a book, then that's even better, because then they'll have to run into it while it's defense. And that 3100 defense means you're probably going to get some damage in. You can even tribute set this and be like, what the fuck is he doing with that? Well, I guess I'll just make Crimson Blader and run it over, and then they take 300 damage and draw 5. Troll, lo, 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 hui, 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 all the fun stuff with Yamada Dragon. And that's it for the big dragons. Now let's get to the non-tributes. First up, 3 copies of Quackimiri Drago. I know his power seems a little underwhelming in the format, what with all the big plays being not based on Light and Darks, but Drago still gets some work done. He disrupts tour guide plays. Generic rank 4s aren't as easy to make while he's on the board. There's Gaga Cowboy and Gemini Pearl. Stops Trigor Spader, and he also stops Big Eye from hitting the field, since he's kind of a dark, and that's rather important. And he does somewhat stymie the progression of Evil Swarm plays into Ophion, as they can't make Ophion. They have to beat over Drago first, and much like them, you are running back row to kind of get around that. The immediate out they would have to this thing would be, what's it called, Evil Swarm Heliotrope, since he's 1950. If you can get Heliotrope out of the way either through Bottomless or Burst Breath or Book of Moon if you're running it, and it's a card I'm honestly thinking of running in the deck just to flip stuff like that down, then you will at least be able to play a grinding game with Evil Swarm, which is something that this deck does over straight up Dragon Rollers, is you can play a grind game. And he's also a 1900 beater, and he's a wind level 4 dragon, and frankly, when it comes to level 4 wind dragons, Quackimir Drago is by far the best. Coming in close though would be the Brave Dragon, but I can only run 2 of him. Then for our last 3 of Mash Dragon, I know he seems a little vulnerable to destruction in this format, but he's still one of the better fire dragons you can run in the deck, and there are decks out there that still will run into this thing. Plus, this is probably one of the best dragons to summon into back row, as they're not really going to want to waste removal on a 1400 guy, but at the same time, they might have to, because they don't want to kill this thing in battle and let you get something out, like a Totem Dragon or an Exploder Dragon or what have you. So yeah, this is probably one of the more fun beaters I've played around with. And then for our 2-0s, the Brave Dragon, yeah, I need to get another rare or another super or 2 ultimates, because this mismatching is pissing me off. Pet peeve of mine. 1 copy of Golem Dragon, 1 copy of Exploder Dragon, 1 Totem Dragon. Not much else to say on this. It's super easy to abuse. And then 1 copy of Flamval Guard. And that is it for the monsters. On to the spells, of which I'm running your 3 Sarks, your 3 MST, and your Unholy Trinity. Dark Hole, I'm a little bit wondering if I should move it to the side. And it's not just me who's thinking it too. Dark Hole in itself is seeing a little bit of debate on whether it's viable in the main deck anymore, thanks to the amount of decks that are just highly resistant to it, or do not care if you Dark Hole them because they can just replace their field on the next turn. Whereas Book of Moon I think might be a little better, since it can flip a monster face down, which, well, in itself may be like, oh well, that's not that great, but it does disrupt your opponent, and more importantly, it's playable during the opponent's turn. If Dark Hole was faster, i.e. a quick play spell, then I wouldn't have a qualm with it, but I figure I might just take this out and put Book of Moon in, seeing how I'm running 3 max removal traps in the main board anyway, and just being able to flip them up during my opponent's turn when they're trying to do their herd-a-dur, that's very, very, very good. So, yeah, this is definitely not a finalized build. It's very subject to change. I'm tweaking a card every other week, seeing what I like and don't like. Now, let's get to our traps. 2 copies of Bottomless, 2 Torrential, and 1 Burst Breath. These are my generic removal cards. Bottomless is very good. Torrential Tribute's also very good. And Burst Breath is just a 3rd TT that you can kill a varying amount of monsters depending on what you tribute. If you sack off a Tempest, for instance, then you're basically going to kill everything. If you sack off a Quackimir Drago, you'll kill most things, but not your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragons. And if you, sack off a Totem Dragon, then you get to kill Evil Swarm Heliotropes. Yay! And then after that, we got Return, Solemn, and Solemn. Not much else to say on the traps. They're almost identical to what I played before, it's just now I'm running Burst Breath. Now let's get to the extra deck, and you've got your 2 expensive cards, Big Eye and Dragosack. I know it's going to say a lot to build these things, but yeah. This is $200 that you might have to spend if you plan on taking this deck to Nats. If you're not going to Nats, then I guess I really would not worry about it, although Dragosack does seem like it would be a smart card to invest in now, because I see it going up later down the stretch, especially if the ban list makes it so that Phantom Beastcrafts become playable. And yeah, if they become like a tier 1 deck, then you know what, this card might just go up too. Yeah, I know, it seems like it'd be a bit much to ask in paying $90 to $100 for a single card, but then it's just the way it goes. Big Eye, though, you guys saw me profile this months ago, back when it was still relatively cheap at around 40, so you probably should have picked it up back then. Yeah, I'm just saying. So, yeah. These cards aside, though, this is what should be more affordable for the main build, and that would be Gaia Dragon, Queen Dragon, Pearl, Chidori, and Maestroke as the other Xyz. Pearl and Maestroke are in for those times where I can go Debris into Golem into one of them. This can flip down Ophion and other things. This is just a 2600 beater, and it's an Earth that you can remove for Redox, and they cannot Fiendish Chain it. Nice. Then for the Synchros, Crimson Blader, Scrap Dragon, Stardust, and Red Dragon Archfiend, because I like having Eradicator Epidemic Virus targets, and Eradicator is actually not that bad decided against Dragon Rulers. You may say, well, why would you do it against that? And I was really confused about this too, until I saw Richard Clark make that very same play against a Dragon Ruler deck, and he knocked out a Gold Sarcophagus, and I think it was a Rejuvenation from the hand, but being able to take a Gold Sarcophagus away from Dragon Rulers is a very dick move play that actually slows them down a fair bit, because that's 2 searches that they do not get, and for 3 turns they can't do any of their spell power plays. So yeah, that's just something to consider. And calling your spells against Prophecy is of course a good game. And running it out, oops, that's our level 6, we'll get to that in a bit. Ancient Fairy Dragon, Black Rose Dragon, and then lastly Orient Dragon. This over Iron Chain, because you don't really want to be milling out the big 3 decks. I mean, spell books, they have no qualms with having their shit hit the graveyard. They can just remove it for Priestess and get it back with Spellbook of Eternity. E-Dragons, obvious. Mermails, more waters to remove for Tidal. Yeah. So, that's why this is in. 23 beats isn't too bad. You can make it with Iron Chain, Debris Dragon plus Totem, and it's also a wind that you can remove alongside Dragosack in order to summon Tempest. And that's it for the deck. Like I said, it's not much different from last time, but you guys have been wanting to see an updated build, and yeah, if you're looking for something to shoot for in regards to a post-Tachyon build, then this would be it. As it is, though, I'm probably going to make some more changes within the next month, because, again, there are just so many things I want to try in here that I don't have, like the Delta Flyer, Divine Dragon Apocryph, Light and Darkness Dragon. Like, there's so many cards in here that I'm not running that I want to run, but I just can't because I'm already at 40 cards. But yeah, I digress. Dragons, they ain't going anywhere anytime soon on here. And that's all I gotta say on that. So thank you guys for watching. Until the next time, this is Obelisk TGS, jacking out.